What up, everybody, and welcome to the Fantasy Flex podcast presented by Prize Picks. This is your divisional round DFS breakdown. I'm Chris Raybon, joined as always by my dude Sean Koerner. Sean, what's going on? How was Super Wildcard weekend?
It was up and down for me. So Saturday was pretty rough. I had that Manny Sanders under 25.5 receiving. I thought it was in the bag, man. And then he caught that ridiculous, 30-yard touchdown. Like I said, Josh Allen has no chill. So I should have known I wasn't in the clear with that. But then Sunday was good. I had a clean sweep. I thought I went 4-0 on our Prize Picks props this week, but I guess Jacoby Myers got negative yards on it. He had 42 yards and he finished with 40. So I lost that one. So I went 3-1. And then last night was just brutal. I had AJ Green over. Yeah. I think you did as well. So yeah. That was brutal because early in the game, he almost caught that 32-yard catch on the sideline. Then he had the controversial 20 some odd yard incompletion and then just nothing after that. So, good Sunday, but bad Saturday and Monday. How about you?
Yeah, no, exactly the same. I think we're on a lot of the same plays, but even some, there were some things that happened throughout the weekend. I feel like that I didn't necessarily expect. I didn't expect Isaiah McKenzie to be that involved for the Bills. Jarrett McKinnon kind of just coming out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Over Darrell Williams, and Derrick Gore was, pretty surprising too. So, it wasn't the best, but on to Cincinnati, as Bill Belichick would say.
Exactly.
On to week 20, right? Yeah, week 20.
Week 20, yes.
So, so we'll talk the main slate here. This week, the main slate is just a 4-game slate. So we'll talk about it in that context. We have 4 games, obviously. Cincinnati, Tennessee. The line is 3.5 in favor of Tennessee with a total of 47. That's on Saturday, along with San Francisco at Green Bay. The Packers are favored by 5.5 with a total of 47.5. And you have Sunday, Rams at Bucks by 3, total 48. And then the Bills at the Chiefs, the highest total game of the week at 55. And the Chiefs are favored by 2. So some lower scoring totals here for this divisional round outside the Chiefs. Quarterback, who do you like?
It begins and ends with Josh Allen, right? He's 7,600, which still seems too cheap, just given how he's playing, given how much they're going to lean on him here. His rushing upside has been absolutely insane lately. I think it's 4 straight games now of 60 or more rushing yards. So this is a matchup where both Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes are going to raise each other's ceilings. Neither team can get complacent. So I think both teams are going to be very stackable. Like you said, the other games on the slate are going to be lower scoring, I think. So this is the game to stack. I'm just worried that Josh Allen's rostership might be way too high here, but either way, he's worth every penny. I think if I am going to spend down, I think Matthew Stafford at 6,200 stands out. He only had to drop back 21 times. He only attempted 17 pass attempts against the Cardinals. I mean, Kyler Murray and the offense just really didn't give him, any incentive to really air it out. So I think he's a good buy low opportunity in a matchup against the Buccaneers, where he's obviously going to have to throw a lot more. And he has a ton of stacking partners with, Cooper Kupp, Ola Beckham, Tyler Higbee. So I think Matthew Stafford on the lower end is probably the guy I'm keying in on this week.
Yeah, I'm looking at our Fantasy Labs models, and Josh Allen, you kind of said it begins and ends with him. His ceiling is 50 points. That's nuts, because our models, that's the 85th percentile. That's not even the 100th percentile. Okay, his absolute highest potential score, would be 50 DraftKings points. That's his 85th percentile outcome, because we use a sim score kind of Pacoda model here, with the different outcomes, and that's just absurd. I mean, it's 4 points higher than anyone else. So yeah, I'm all with you on Allen. And yeah, I think both of the quarterbacks in that Bucks Rams game, Brady and Stafford, stand out because, Stafford, they're probably not going to run the ball quite as much on Tampa. I know Tampa's had some issues with explosive runs, but they're healthier now at run defense. So I think Stafford will have to throw the ball more. And then on the other side, this Rams team is not like the Eagles. They're going to put up some points on that Bucks defense. So I think Brady's going to be forced to throw it more. And we saw that in the first matchup where the Rams won. Stafford threw for 383 and Brady was at over 400. So they combined for about 800 passing yards in that earlier game. I don't know if it'll be that crazy, but I think, building a portfolio of quarterbacks here, those two games, that Chiefs game and that Rams game are the two that stand out, especially with, the news of Jimmy Garoppolo. He's probably not going to be 100%. And then, that Titans Bengals game, I guess that's kind of the sleeper game, but even Burrow, when he's not going against like these like straight up man coverage defenses, he's still really good, but the numbers aren't always there. And the pace is a little slower for him, as we saw in that Raider game. So yeah, like that Stafford call, like Brady, like Allen, like Mahomes. All right, let's go to running back. And running back is, this is the position where I don't know. I mean,
shit. I was gonna say it's a shit show.
Yeah, that's fair.
Oh man.
Your boy Devin Singletary and what is it? Did you get 12-1?
14-1.
14-1
was the best price, but yeah, it was 12-1 for BetMGM on Convince Me, but yeah, it's looking pretty good right now. Again, I'm just kind of riding the coattails of the Bills making the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But he's the workhorse back now, so he's going to get pretty much every carry out of the backfield. So I think it's down to like 6-1 now. So like my chances there. Yeah,
he's also our top running back in terms of projected plus minus in our Fantasy Labs models. So Singletary, he's kind of the guy that stands out. Who else stands out to you at running back? Yeah, so I mean, this just slate's kind of tricky right now because Derrick Henry. He's the most expensive back, and rightfully so, but we don't really know how healthy he is. So right now he's my number 2 back behind Joe Mixon. And then we don't really know what's going on with the Bucks or the Chiefs backfield right now. It's just impossible to project them. We don't know if Fournette's going to return this week. We don't know if Ronald Jones is going to return. We don't know if Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to play. And like you said, Jerick McKinnon sort of came out of nowhere. I thought it was going to be the Darrell Williams, Derek Gore show, and Jerick McKinnon came out. So we might find some value there later in the week, but right now I'm just kind of staying away. So like you said, Singletary's the top option for me. And then Elijah Mitchell at 5,800. I think, people will shy away from him this week because we're expecting a negative game script. I think Jimmy G is going to be forced to throw a bit more, but I mean, out of the gate, the 49ers are going to try to be run heavy, have a similar game plan as last week, try to keep the Packers offense off the field. So if they do sneak in a win here, it's going to be because of Elijah Mitchell, and he'll benefit from a positive game script. So I don't think he's a smash spot play at this price, but again, just it's so tricky that you kind of have to go against the grain here. And I'm sticking with Elijah Mitchell being the focal point of that 49ers offense right now. I think Singletary, Mixon, Mitchell, those three guys are kind of the best straight up value plays, safest floors as of right now that we know. As far as guys for tournaments, I think that's when it becomes wide open. I really like Cam Akers at 5,500. He played 53% of the snaps against the Cardinals, 18 touches, 95 yards for Akers. So I think he's back. He's back in that role. And his role, as we kind of talked about this on last week's show, like we had him projected for about a third of the workload, but his upside was getting almost all of the workload, and he got about half. So he's right in the middle. But this week, I mean, he could get 2/3 or 75% or something like that. Yep. So he's up there, because he was priced before that Monday night game got underway. So he's obviously going to be a value that sticks out, 5,500 on DK. And then I think McKinnon is worth, rostering regardless. I mean, at this point, I don't know that he didn't play himself into a bigger role, because I don't know if they intended necessarily to feature him coming into that game. But after the first few plays, it seemed like they just said, all right, we're just going to leave you out there now. And the other guys, Williams' fumble didn't help, but at this point, I don't know how you really justify playing anybody, even Edwards-Helaire over Jerick McKinnon. So I think McKinnon's worth rostering. Well, we'll see what we project his rostership to be later in the week, but just because of the uncertainty, I don't think he'll be 50-60% on this slate. So I think he's probably worth keeping in mind as well. Yeah, agree. And, Darrell Williams, he's dealing with a toe injury, which obviously isn't good for a running back. So we'll just have to monitor that. But I agree, McKinnon looked great. This is the kind of offense you'll take any back that gets 15 plus touches. So yeah, this is something to monitor, and I won't shy away from McKinnon. Obviously he's very talented. He looked great last week. So hopefully we just get more clarity later in the week to trust him. And yeah, I love the Cam Akers call. When I did my, fantasy playoff projections piece, I mentioned that
the farther the Rams get, the more I was giving Cam Akers in terms of, touch share. So the fact that he already kind of leapfrogged Sony Michel last week means he'll probably get even more this week. I mean, he is their lead back. So yeah, I think he's kind of sneaky, especially since they didn't really update pricing. He's what, 5,300 for the main slate. So love that call as well.
Yeah, and he won't have to be like when you play the Bucks, you don't really want that like power runner inside. Yeah. Like you want a guy who can pop a big play. I know Michelle had a big play to start the game too, but Akers kind of fits the mold of who you would play against the Bucks. All right, let's go to wide receiver. This is another one where I think it's pretty interesting pricing wise. When's the last time Tyreek Hill was like not even in the top 3 on a small slate?
Yeah, no, his rostership's going to be really high. I was going to say way too high, but no, it should be high because I don't know why he's this cheap. He looked healthy last week. The only reason they limited his touches because they got up so big early. But you saw him do that backflip in the end zone after his touchdown. Yeah. He looks completely fine to me. So, yeah, I'm surprised he's not like close to 8K here, especially like we said, this matchup should be a shootout. So I'm interested in both Tyreek Hill at 6,600 and Stephon Diggs at 6,500. I mean, you have to like. And he was limited last week just because they didn't need him. And we mentioned that Belichick would probably scheme, to take him out of the game. So I just think both guys are critical when it comes to these game stacks. No matter what quarterback you take, you send it back with either one of these guys. I just think both of these guys are too cheap. And then, in this 4 to 5K range, I think the guys that stick out for me are Brandon Ayuk at 5,200 and Van Jefferson at 4,200. Both of these teams could be in a more pass-heavy game script this week. So those are the two guys that I think would benefit from that. Their deep ball skills would certainly come into play. So I think they're the sneaky plays in the middle tier. And then like on the lower end, closer to min price, I think Juwan Jennings, you mentioned him last week. I mean, he's one of those guys that's stepping up for the 49ers right now. So again, with a more pass-heavy game script that I'm expecting this week, Juwan Jennings could benefit. And then, Randall Cobb at bare minimum price. We'll have to see how healthy he is, but assuming he can return and get over, 60% of the routes run this week, I think Randall Cobb could be sneaky in that 3K range as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of options. I think Jefferson really stands out. I think Isaiah McKenzie has to be considered because he essentially is taking that spot from Beasley. I don't know exactly, what happened last week, but McKenzie like doubled up Beasley in snaps, and he was involved from early in the game. It wasn't like it was a blowout and then McKenzie started getting more work. It was McKenzie kind of from the jump, and they're using McKenzie a little bit as kind of like that backup running back. Like Zach Moss is active, but Breida is not. So I think McKenzie is a guy who could keep getting design plays for him. I also like the bounce back spot for T Higgins. He's back. We always talk every time he's below like 6K, you got to kind of look at him, and he's had a quiet game, only 1 catch on 4 targets against the Raiders in a game that should have favored him. He's been kind of their guy against zone coverage, but every team is going to play a lot of zone coverage. Even though the Titans aren't necessarily as high as the Raiders are on that list. I think T Higgins is in a nice spot, and people might be scared away because he's like, a little more expensive than Beckham, who scored a touchdown, and Ayuk, who's going to be, in a better game script. So I think people will kind of overlook guys like T Higgins. Julio Jones is another one. I think these guys, those kind of number 2 receivers in that game, people may overlook a little just with all the other options out there.
Yeah, I love the Higgins call. I think he had 2 drops last week. He had a couple balls where, they would have been tough catches, but I've seen him make those catches all year long. So he just had a rough game. It's definitely a buy low spot on Higgins. They'll probably have to throw a lot more in this game. And yeah, I love the McKenzie call. He's essentially the dollar store Deebo Samuel, right? Like, I mean, they're using him in a similar way. He gets, carries. And yeah, I read an article saying that they prefer using him in the red zone over Cole Beasley. Just because he's just a better, I don't know, route runner. Just they can use him.
Not a route runner. He's absolutely not.
I'm saying in that area of the field, he has more of a knack for the. That's why I corrected myself. He has a knack for the end zone, and that's why I took him first touchdown score a couple weeks ago at 20-1. I'll be looking to do that again here because he can get in either catching the ball or running the ball, but he does usually find ways to find the end zone. But like I said, he's kind of giving me those Deebo Samuel vibes of late. So love that call as well.
All right, let's go to tight end. And tight end, we still have a pretty jacked slate. I mean, a guy who stands out to me is George Kittle, coming off a pretty quiet game. He's priced down to 5,300. You mentioned it, probably going to be a little more passing. I don't think you're going to be able to jump out to a lead against the Packers quite as easily as you were against the Cowboys. So Kittle's had, really four straight kind of quiet games in a row. I think this is one where you're going to see him start to bust out in a big way. So Kittle's the guy for me. Who are you looking at?
Yeah, I like the Kittle call. I think everyone's kind of off him right now. They've been using him as a blocker a lot more in these, run heavy positive game scripts. So if it flips this week, he could have a big game. I think, Gronk at 5,800, he had a down game by only going 5 catches for 31 yards and a touchdown. It looked like Brady was trying to incorporate guys like Brashad Perryman, Tyler Johnson in the first half. And then he kind of went away from that in the second half, started to target Mike Evans, Gronk a little bit more. I think he just starts off this game just targeting Gronk at will. This is another good matchup for him where he's facing a zone heavy team like the Rams. So I think this is just a Gronk smash spot. And yeah, I think you have to spend up at tight end. This slate's too top heavy at tight end to really go too far down the list. But I think if I'm going to go cheap at tight end, the farthest down I'm willing to go is probably Higbee at 4K. He had 3 straight games of 5 or more receptions until last night where he only caught 3 balls for 46 yards. But when you put it in the context that Stafford only attempted 17 passes, only threw for 202 yards, this is a bounce back game for Higbee in what should be a more pass heavy game script for the Rams. So I think Higbee at 4K makes sense, but I wouldn't go anywhere close to like these Uzomas or guys like that. It's not the time for that. Just spend up to get an elite tight end for this slate.
And as we say that, and then watch Jeff Swaim catch 2 touchdowns.
That's good. He can catch 2 touchdowns and be 2% owned. That's fine. But yeah, it would not surprise me, obviously.
2 catches for 2 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
All right. Defense. This is another. I mean, I think the Packers kind of stand out after getting that Jimmy news that, he could be playing with, messed up thumb and a messed up shoulder. Like, that's just, I mean, he already is like, it's all these in-breaking routes, I feel like the ball is at risk every time he throws the ball, even though he's been good for the most part. So I like the Packers here. I mean, do we have word on Alexander? Is he potentially coming back for this game?
I think LaFleur said he's hopeful he can play. So who knows what that means? I'm assuming. I thought he was close to returning, like week 17, week 18. Mm-hmm. So I would imagine he's going to suit up this week.
Yeah, so that kind of puts the Packers in a tier of their own, I think. But who do you like at defense this week?
Yeah, no, I love the Packers call. I think Zadarius Smith also might return, so that's going to be huge. And yeah, Jimmy G, like if they can get him into a pass heavy game script, which I think they will, he's good for a few turnover worthy plays. Like he's been making some really bad plays and bad decisions these past few games and getting lucky on a couple of them. So I just think a slate like this, the Packers they're only 3K. So that's, they're worth spending up because you don't really have.
Yeah.
Oh, 32. Yeah. There's not many good options this week because, all the offenses left are pretty damn good. So I think the Packers make the most sense. I think you can make a case for like the Bengals being sneaky. If Trey Hendrickson can play this week, this is a game where, the Bengals have the firepower to get up early on the Titans, maybe force, Tannehill in a pass heavy game script. So I think Bengals are sneaky at 2,700. I think the roster ship's going to be really low, but just the pure value play, it's got to be the Packers at 3,200.
Yeah. And I like the Titans as well at 2,900. I mean, they're the cheapest. They're the second cheapest favored team. The Chiefs are 2,800, but I don't want any parts of going against Josh Allen with the defense. But the Titans, I mean, it's like the football cliche, but the Titans are going to play physical. And like we know the Bengals, as explosive as they are, they've had a tendency to give defenses some points. They led the league in sacks during the regular season with 51. Burrow was up there in terms of the interception leaders. So the Bengals offense could make a mistake or two. And this Titans team, a couple weeks to prepare in Tennessee. One of the lower totaled games of the week. Titans actually and the second biggest favorite now that I look at it too. So yeah. I mean, I think the Titans, both of the defenses in that game, I agree, shouldn't be overlooked because both of them are under 3K. And it's just, it's not as sexy. And it's like those defenses don't really stand out in terms of you think of players, when you think of them like, oh, they have this guy, they have that guy. But that could be a very profitable game, I think, for defenses.
Yeah, stack Derrick Henry with the Titans defense is in play. And I don't think we've done a prop this pod, so let's do one prop.
Okay.
Because I'm curious where you're projecting it, but how many carries and rushing yards do you have Derrick Henry at right now? So for rushing yards, 87.5. Are you over or under that?
I'm over. I have him at 96.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So over 20 carries?
22.
Okay.
So I mean, the Titans are a run every team, but I actually have Henry still getting a lower snap share around about 80%. So, it's just, when he's in a game, he's going to get his carries, right? Like that's
right.
If he's good enough to play, I don't see how you give him anything less than 20 carries. So
right.
Yeah. I wouldn't, as long as he's active, I wouldn't worry about it. I think you treat him like he's good to go. He's going to power through it. I think if there was an issue, he just wouldn't be on the field. So obviously something to monitor. But if he's going to play, I think he's going to be good to go.
Agree. And if anything, they'll limit him in, the passing game. So guys like Hilliard or McNichols should still get some playing time, but I'm assuming Deontay Foreman is completely out of the picture at this point with Henry back.
Wait, really? I think the exact opposite. I think Foreman's going to be the only other guy to get snaps.
Really? You think it'll? So
yeah, I think watch him play. I mean, first of all, McNichols got cut and they re-signed to the practice squad, so he's not even on the roster right now.
Oh, so then it would just be Hilliard.
Yeah, it would be Hilliard, but
I'm just saying that I kind of agree that anytime there's a running situation, they'll give it to Henry. Just if there's anywhere that you would limit him would be receiving usage.
I mean, I would still they have been playing Hilliard more than Foreman, but in this kind of game, being that if they may only want to play two backs, I would still think Foreman, because we've seen Foreman catch some passes here and there. I mean, I don't know. I can't imagine them giving meaningful snaps to Dontrell Hilliard in a divisional round game.
Like I said, this backfield is way more fun when it was just Derrick Henry. So let's just keep it that way.
Yeah. But no, I mean, I could see, because the one thing is Foreman and Henry kind of are similar players. So it's if Henry does get, a few more breathers than usual, I still do think Foreman would come in. I think he's kind of a sneaky play, a sneaky touchdown bet. You know what I mean? He'll probably be 40-1 or something like that. But I could see him getting a couple snaps is what I'm saying. All right. That's going to do it for the Fantasy Flex Divisional Round Playoff Preview presented by Prize Picks. You can find Sean on Twitter at @_oddsmaker. You can find me at Chris Raybon, and be sure to check out actionnetwork.com for our betting content, fantasylabs.com for our DFS content, tools, and models. And be sure to leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple or Spotify. We will be back with our props episode on Friday. Until then, let's get this money.